Hey everyone, welcome back to The Truth. And today we got a little bit of something special I'm gonna try to start doing. I don't know how consistent I'll be, but I'm gonna try to start doing. So today we're gonna go over top 25 college football, and then next week go over next week's games, or technically this week's games, and then we're gonna go over my top 25, um who I should be ranked top 25. And I'll get into a little bit more about how I organized it and detailed it later. But let's just break down this. So AP top 25 is Georgia and Michigan at 1 and 2. I mean, you could flip flop those. I understand. You know, Ohio State, Ohio State, Florida, Washington, Oklahoma, Penn State. Those I don't mind. Texas, Oregon, North Carolina, Bama, Oregon State, Ole Miss, Utah, Notre Dame. Here's where I come to a problem. They have Notre Dame at 15, but LSU at 19. Like, let's not joke around. Like I said this last week. LSU is beating Notre Dame 9 times out of 10. Like, they might not have the best defense, but they had a lot better game last week to a team that contended with the number one team in the nation the AP top 25 polls are right now, and LSU beat them by 30. They beat them with 30 points extra. So like it's kind of like give LSU a little bit more respect. Like LSU should be. I'd probably flip Notre Dame and LSU, but we'll get into that later. That's my personal opinion. Duke, Tennessee, USC, I don't mind. Sucks that USC lost to Notre Dame, and that's why they're ranked so high. I think that's why they're ranked. I think they're a little overrated. I'm not gonna lie. Sorry, I'm gonna drink some water just to help with my throat. Sorry, y'all. But I mean, you can't let the USC game overrate Notre Dame. Don't get me wrong; it's a good win for them, but everyone knew USC didn't have a defense. That's been a problem since Lincoln Riley got there. So it is what it is. Missouri, Louisville, Air Force. Give Air Force their props. They're 6-0, baby. I know they're gonna lose their quarterback for a little while, but give their props. Okay, you Air Force, I see you. Tulane, Iowa, and UCLA. That's really the things. My main grievance is with Notre Dame over LSU. And it's not the fact that like, oh, I'm thinking LSU is just really dominant team. It's just like, no, dog. Like if you look at the games, LSU would probably. I don't want to say they're gonna steamroll them, but they'd have a good game. They'd have a pretty decent game against Notre Dame. Like Notre Dame isn't this high-powered offense, and I think that's where it kind of hurts them. Like if we looked at team to team, because they both have 2 losses. I know I understand Notre Dame has one more win, and I understand Notre Dame has one more win, but it's kind of like that thing. But other than that, man, I don't know. That's why it kind of gets me like you have that big of a gap, and you really think that big of a gap is between these two teams, and it's kind of like, But all right. Scrolling on to next week's games for week 8, guys. There's some games that are just like, dog. There's no way this team's playing this team. Pause this real quick. Penn State versus Ohio State. Circle that game to watch. Cause look, I'm telling y'all, that's the game. That's the game at 11 o'clock. Circle that game. Circle it. Highlight it. Throw fireworks at it. Number 7 Penn State versus number 3 Ohio State. This is the game that we see if Ohio State is a fraud or not. They've had some games that look a little sus. And don't get me wrong, a lot of teams have had that. A lot of top teams have had that. But this is the game where we're really going to see who is Ohio State and who's Penn State. So I'm excited. That's the game to circle at 11 o'clock. USC versus Oklahoma. UCF, my bad. Sorry. UCF at Oklahoma or versus Oklahoma. Air Force versus Navy. Washington State versus Oregon. That could be a good game. Keep that in mind. Tennessee versus Alabama. That could also be a good game. Watch out for those 2 games. We'll also watch out for the South Carolina Missouri game. I know South Carolina is 2-4, but It could be a close game, but then very well it could be a blowout game. But keep an eye out for that Washington State and that Oregon versus Oregon and Tennessee versus Alabama. North Texas versus Tulane. Minnesota versus Iowa. Nothing to be said here. Texas versus Houston. Come on now, y'all. Virginia versus North Carolina. Nothing else to be said. Ole Miss versus Auburn. That could be an interesting game too. Keep out for that. That could be a very interesting game. So y'all watch out for that one. Michigan versus Michigan State. Usually that's a fun game to go to, but Michigan State isn't too good right now. So I think it's probably gonna be a steamroll. There's a couple teams where it's like, dang, those teams are like 2-4. Like there are a couple of teams that are playing like 2-4 teams, and it's just like, unless you're a fan, it's probably not going to be an interesting game. You might see some cool highlights, but it's not going to be like an interesting competitive game if you're looking for something like that. Duke versus Florida State. I keep that in mind. Duke's been quite good. I don't know if they're going to be able to contend with Florida State, but they could. Florida State's had a couple games, so this could also be one of them. So I keep an eye on that. But it could also be a complete wipe by Florida State. I think the probability of Duke getting upset is pretty low, but it is still possible. So I'm not gonna throw it out there. Like another game, like I told you about, teams playing 2-4. Like LSU's playing 2-4. LSU is a -30 line. Like, yeah, it's kind of expected. Utah versus USC. This should be a good game at 7 o'clock. I'd circle that on y'all's sheet, just because I think that could also be a good game to watch. Keep an eye out for that one. Arizona versus Penn State. No, I think Washington should easily take care of Arizona State. I mean, they should. Michael Penix Jr. is doing good. His stock's rising. He's an interesting quarterback to watch. He might after this season, I might have him ranked over. I might have him ranked number 2. I don't know. I have to do some Penix film. I have to do my Penix film and finish my Drake May. Finish my Drake May and Caleb Williams film. And then I'll have 2 videos. I'll have 2 videos for that, and then I should have 3 videos coming for Penix Jr. And I guess I could talk about it right now. So the idea of me doing 3 videos, freshman, sophomore, and senior year, is one to react to how they were, or depending on how many years they played, to react to how were they each year compared to my standings and what everyone else thought at the time. And just give my honest opinions on maybe why that was, or just like, man, he was just really underrated. That gives that idea, but it also shows, for ratings wise, it also shows, man, are they improving or are they not? And that's a big question. But UCLA versus Stanford, that shouldn't be a close game. There are a couple close games. I don't know if it's gonna be like last week. Last week was a fun week. There are some good games, but there are also some games where it's like, that should probably be a blowout. Okay, now getting into my top 25 record by record right now. Just a note for some teams, this isn't who I think is better, but deserve it because of their record. Right now, I have Georgia number 1, and this is only because Georgia, I don't think, has lost a game for a very long time, and that's the only reason I have them at number 1. Michigan, they're hunting. Like that could very well be the number 1 team in the nation right now. Like, I'm not surprised. Florida State, I have at number 3. I have them over Ohio State just because I do think at this point Florida State is better than Ohio State. Now, this Penn State and Ohio State game is really gonna make me think about my top 25 for next week, because that game could either plummet Ohio State, drop them a couple, or it could rise them to number 3. We'll see. I have Oklahoma at number 5. I really like how Oklahoma's playing football right now. They're playing some pretty good games. They're very they surprised me. Then I have Washington. I like how Michael Penix Jr. is under the offense. Penn State, and then I have North Carolina. And then I have at number 9, Air Force. Now, this is one of the teams who Do I think they are the ninth best team in the nation? No. But they're 6-0 and they deserve it. They deserve that because of what they've done so far in the season. And then at number 10, I have Bama. Number 11, I have USC. All right. Bama. Bama's had a couple good games. Now I know they've had some hiccups with their quarterback situation, but they've had a couple good games. USC, they dropped one to Notre Dame, which I mean, yeah, it sucks, but I mean, it's not like they're terrible. Like, no, they're a good team, and they're good six. Like, they're one of the best 6-1 teams right now. Then I have at 12 Missouri, and then at 13 I have Oregon State. 14 I have Louisville. 15 I have Iowa, and then I have 16 at Texas. The only reason I have the Texas and these teams below the others, just because they don't. From 10 to 15 are all teams with 6-1 records, and then from um, 16 and down are either teams with 2 losses or teams who are 5-1. And we'll get into the 2 loss teams, but right now from teams 16 to 22, they're all 5-1 teams. That's why I have them right there, because it's showing respect. Unless it's like blatantly obvious, where it's like, unless the only reason I make an exception for Air Force is because they're 6-0. It's hard to be undefeated in college football, so I make a exception for Air Force, but give credit where credit's due. Um, give credit where credit's due if you're undefeated. Other than that, they're 5-1. That's kind of why I make that That's why I make that exception. I have Texas at 16, Oregon at 17, Ole Miss at 18, and Tennessee at 19. That'd be an interesting game to see. Ole Miss versus Tennessee. Number 20 Utah, 21 Duke, and then 22 Tulane. Duke's been that team who's been. They've been chomping at that bit. Give Duke credit. They've been chomping at that bit. I'd love to see who would win between Duke and Tulane though. And then at 23, I have LSU over Notre Dame. This is the one game where I think, okay, LSU is better. Like, I'd have LSU over Notre Dame. Even though Notre Dame has one more game over LSU, that's the kind of exception I'm making. Um, Notre Dame at 6-2. LSU's ranked 23rd, 5-2, and Notre Dame is ranked 6-2, 24. And then UCLA is 4-2, ranked 25. That is my top 25 record by respect ish, kind of. If that makes any sense on how I explained it. But no, let me know what are your thoughts on this video. Like, at what point do you disagree? Do you agree? What do you think? What are your reactions to the AP Top 25 or to this week's Saturday games or to my top 25 record? Let me know. I'd love to hear about it. I'd love to discuss it with y'all. But yeah, I will see y'all tomorrow with the next video about my predictions for the NFL. See y'all, and thanks for watching.